For today's last session, we are concluding with tools to reduce your fuel. This will be moderated by Cy Frame, who is the Senior Film Liaison, Location Portfolio Manager at Location Fixer Productions, where we'll hear from production experts on the use of tie-ins and generators and dive into the DGC tools which you can apply to your next production to reduce your fuel. Please welcome and give them a warm welcome, Kerri Coombs, producer, FireDance Media, Clara George, producer, sustainability consultant, DGC Chair, National Sustainability and Climate Action Committee, and Jeff Harvey, rigging Gaffer, Red Seal Electrician. Welcome, everybody.
Thanks for joining us today. Today we're going to discuss tools for reducing your fuel. The subject has been a driving passion for myself and my fellow panelists here over the years. Between us, we like to share our knowledge and our resources to help reduce your production carbon emission. Let's face it, the time for excuses is over. The time for real change is now. We're fortunate enough to be in a part of Canada where 90% of the energy produced is hydro generation, meaning that for every diesel generator and vehicle changed out for electric, we make real reductions in carbon emissions. This doesn't mean that the tools and knowledges that we share today aren't as effective in other areas of the world that generate power with less sustainable methods. Reducing fuel inputs to any size project is a top priority for decarbonizing production practices. There are varied mitigation strategies and clean tech solutions that we can add to our toolkit. In this moderated chat, we'll hear from production experts who use tie-ins and generators, and we'll dive into the DGC tools and study the techniques you can apply to your next production to reduce your fuel. Anyhow, without further ado, let me introduce. You've already been introduced. I'm just reading from the script here. I think we're going to start today. We're going to start today with a 10-minute demonstration by Clara on the DGC tools to reduce fuel, right? After demonstration, we'll jump into a conversation between the panelists and discuss tools and best practices. We hope that you learn and take the valuable lessons with you.
I think that the best ideas come from the arts. Most creative people have landed in the film industry because it's such a all-encompassing art form, and I would love to see that application put into practice.
Forwarding the sustainable narrative just through the everyday things that the characters are doing on screen, with the way that they're drinking water, the way that they're driving their cars.
We want to be a clean industry. None of us like working around diesel generators.
It's been a long COVID year where we're doing this on Zoom. So it's been a while since I've been up in front of people. Anyway, welcome everybody. What a great day. Everybody else has done the beginning of my presentation, which is fantastic. We have learned about the importance of generator fuel and why we have to stop using diesel to power our sets. So, just very quickly recap. Sustainable Production Alliance, a report from 2021, 3,370 metric tons on average for a tent pole film. You'll notice that fuel is 48% of that. We've got television here ranging from 58% fuel down to documentaries, which are using way less fuel. But a lot of us work in the scripted drama fiction area, and this is what our challenge is. The Metro Vancouver report. We have every solution exists for every scenario right now. That's really important. This is not future thinking. And, you know, I'm just amazed at the panel we just listened to, which was so fantastic. And I just don't want to be the person who pulls out a generator to try and tell these impact stories. You know, we are the production people. We have to serve the stories that we need to tell, and we have to do it authentically without burning fuel. So luckily in BC, City of Vancouver, awesome leaders. They initiated the Clean Energy Incentive in early 2020, mid-2020, and by early 2021, 33% of productions were able to replace one diesel generator. That meant that 623 generators did not run, saving 184,000 liters of diesel, avoiding 486 metric tons of carbon, and those productions saved cumulatively $730,000. And this is before we dropped the kiosks. So going forward, which is why we have to learn how to do this, the other 66% who didn't do it, the City of Vancouver, the new incentive now requires that you replace 50% of your power sources, not just one generator. And you will receive a discount of 50% of your fees. The glide path is by 2025, 2026, 75% of your power sources need to be clean. By 2027, 2029, 100% of your power sources. No night filming if you can't figure this out. Now, when I spoke with Jeff Tioli, the film commissioner for City of Vancouver, he made sure I mentioned that you will still be allowed to film. You will not get the incentives, and, you know, we're hoping you can hit these standards, but if you can't, if you're doing lightning strikes and you need a separate source for that, you will still be able to do that. Hopefully at that point it'll be on renewable diesel and you'll have a 90% less impact. So the other thing, Real Green, amazing leaders in the world on promoting sustainable production. So here's our toolkits. We have maps, which we already saw in a presentation this morning. These are the clean energy tie-in map. So our crews are mapping and calling in whenever they find a grid tie-in. There's 159 of them so far. So what we've done at DGC Green is we are meeting with all the caucus reps. And when we met with the production managers, they said, okay, Clara, you're spewing these numbers. This is your life. Help me figure this out. And we've heard that from the rigging gaffers. We've heard that from the location managers. How do I make a business case? How do I convince my show that it's worth investing in the battery that's going to cost more money to rent, or to add money for a tie-in for a location, or spend $50,000 on an infrastructure power drop? How do I make that argument? So we did.
How much more is it for the electric generator than a standard generator? Are you going to show that?
I'm going to show that. Luckily, you can tell I'm not technically very good at this, so thank goodness that GreenSpark Group helped me make these calculators. But this calculator is on the DGC Green website. Actually, I wanted to show you one thing before that. So this is the DGC Green website, and if you click on the emissions, you'll get to the calculators. First thing you can do on here is you can go and pick. In Vancouver, we use around 1,600 amp generators. We're going to hope it's a tier 3 because we learned from Valid the importance of new technology, so we really want to be using tier 3s or 4s. We know that we are underusing the generator. We're running at really low loads. A generator idles at 15%. So if you're using less than 15%, you're still paying for 15%. We know that it's going to be diesel fuel, and we're going to guess, I have no idea, I'm going to say $2.10 a liter for diesel right now. Is that realistic? And we know that the base camp generator is going to run 14 hours. So now instantly on the right, you are going to burn 182 liters of fuel. It is going to cost you $382, and you are going to emit almost half a ton of carbon. This is on the website. You can have this on your phone. Every survey, every meeting, Here's your question. Now you know how much it costs to run a generator. So now if we go to download the Excel sheets, which are down here at the bottom. Yep. Thank you. So the first thing you're going to get is you're going to get 4 sheets here. The first one is estimate your fuel emissions, clean energy cost analysis, estimate your generator fuel cost, and your fuel consumption table. So remembering that number of 350, we are going to go to the clean energy cost analysis tab. So depending on what your equipment deals are, your size of your generator, let's say you're renting your generator for $700 a day. You're going to use $350 worth of fuel. You're going to run it for 14 hours. But if you go to one of Si's locations, you're going to get a tie-in, and you're going to pay...
Yeah, anything from $250 to $600 a day.
Okay, so let's say we're paying $400. If you're in the city of Vancouver, you're going to get a clean energy incentive, which is $650. I'm going to guess your electrical costs are $100, and you're going to use it for 14 hours. So what you can see is that if you use a generator, the cost for that day, for using it, sorry, that's 14 days. Let's make it 1 day, just to be really clear. So it's going to cost you $1,050 to run your generator, and it's going to cost you $150 to use the tie-in.
Actually, I think mine is, yep, you're getting 150 back.
You're getting 150 back. I'm a producer, not an accountant. Okay, so basically everything in yellow you fill in, and then everything else automatically populates. So if you go to the second one, to the battery question, we're going to say that this is an $800 generator. It's still burning $350. You're going to use it for 5 days that week. Battery is going to cost you, let's say, $1,200. You're going to get the rebate for 5 days. You're going to use $100 in hydro, and you're going to use it for 5 days. So you're going to save $2,500 by renting the more expensive piece of equipment in this scenario. Right?
Yeah. So we're saving money and the environment at the same time?
Yes.
It's a win-win.
You are saving money and the environment. I love it. It doesn't always work, right? It doesn't always work. Let's say just to be completely transparent here, because we talked about transparency and authenticity, I'm already carrying the generator. It's sitting in the lot. I've booked it run of show. So I'm going to lose that number. But now I'm going to look at it and I'm going to say, okay, it's going to cost me $1,500. I can handle that. I can do that. Maybe I can save it later. Maybe I can't. But, at least I know I'm making an educated choice. Okay, the last one is power upgrades, because a lot of us, this is dropping, calling Trinity Power, getting them to come in and drop a C can, down converting, that's down converting high voltage to production voltage, but that costs money. So let's say it costs $15,000, but you're going to use it for your entire show. So you're going to use it for 40 days over the course of a series. And again, we're going to say it's $100. And let's say it replaces 2 generators. So it's replacing 80 generators. And, again, you already own the generators. So over the course of the show, you're going to save $9,000 by putting out that initial investment. So what we've decided, what these are for you to make the decision that works for your show. Okay? If you needed to, again, figure out what your consumption is, there is an estimated for generator fuel cost tab, and you plug in what we did on the initial page. You also can start comparing. So like the one that's plugged in here is a 1600 amp generator. Let's say I get a deal on it because it's a tier 1, which we never want to see. So now I can put it down here, put that information down here, and you'll know that you're going to be using, sorry, where's the fuel? Oh, didn't work. That's strange. I'll figure out why that happened. We'll update it. But anyway, you would put your generators down here, and you can compare which ones you're using and what gives you the best value for your money. That's based on the consumption tool here, which again, we talked about tiers. So green is the latest, is a tier 3 in the large generators. And in the smaller generators, we're up to tier 4. So even just by asking the equipment companies for the most latest technology, demanding the most efficient technology because of the less emissions and also less NOx gases and everything else that Val presented earlier today, you're already going to be dropping your consumption from 28 liters an hour to 21 liters per hour. And you didn't do anything. You just changed what you rented. And lastly, if you really want to know what's going on your show when you first open your budget, and you go, okay, I'm going to put in $15,000 a week for fuel, and we're going to shoot for, we're going to shoot for 22 weeks, and this is the cost of fuel these days, although obviously diesel is higher. So you can look at the bottom and you go, okay, I am projecting that this project that I'm about to produce is going to emit 4,242 metric tons, and I want to do better.
That's a 150,000 weekly budget instead of 15,000.
Thank you, Jose. Well, don't we all wish we had $150,000 a week for fuel? Okay, so 424. Not nearly as dramatic, but still a lot. Anyway, these tools are available on the website. There's a lot on this website. If you've never looked at the website, we also have all the tips. Sorry, we don't have a menu for it, though. Hold on. You know, you can go down, you can see tips from each department, including creative storytelling. And then there's also now a members in action section where you can see all of the forums, including the ones that we participate in here. And that's it.
Thank you. And that's available for anybody to obviously use, and go to the website, check it out. I advise everybody does it. I'd like to talk to you guys a little bit about your experiences with this. Have you used this software before for your calculations and your productions?
I have. The last production I did, this just came out, and the last production I did came out prior to that. So no, but I do. I'm formerly from the lighting department and have done a little bit of gaffing, and now have moved into producing documentaries. But on the side, I help productions figure out how much energy they're going to use on any given day, so that they can transition away from diesel generators with a bit more confidence. And that typically involves calculating consumption, which is really a matter of like adding up everything that's going to use electricity, which is, I think, something that Jeff can talk about more because he's a gaffer who plans with these things all the time on bigger shows. And then you just divide that into the storage capacity of the battery you want to use. This is if you can't find a grid hookup. So like it's extremely niche, but it complements a tool like this really well. So this is as a production tool, which is like, here's the big picture, here's the costs, here's the emissions, and the rental side of things. So if you want to use a battery as opposed to a diesel generator, there's a how that you really need to understand to set yourself up for success. So yeah, I mean, to complement this, you want the extra piece of kind of assessing how much power you're going to need, because once the battery is depleted, you need to have a plan to charge it up, and you want ideally for it to last all day long. So I was hoping that Jeff would talk a lot about that.
Are there enough?
But planning your battery days.
Well, with the help of this lovely person here, I've done 2 productions, 2 series, Virgin River, in which we planned, executed, and with a lot of help from a lot of other people, ran, and we reduced our carbon by 40, what was it in the last year?
50%.
Wow.
So I was tasked with stealing all the money I could from different budgets and getting as many electric generators from our supplier that I could, and I did that with the support of production and our director of photography and our gaffer. I was the rigging gaffer, and I planned every move, planned every location. We did tie-ins as much as we could because we're on the road and we're in Squamish and places like that. It's a little more difficult, but we had a few successes. But most of them were all batteries, and we were flipping them at lunchtime. We were changing batteries out and running all day with a battery source. What we found out the first season, some really good positives that came up out of all of this was locations that like us when we don't run big diesel generators downtown Vancouver or downtown Squamish. They like it when there's a nice quiet battery sitting on the corner only 100 feet away, and they don't have to have a whole bunch of parking and cable mats and PAs and other people helping us, because that's what I could do. I could put a generator literally 150 feet away from a set and run my entire set for most of the day, or I could flip it out at lunch and carry on, and to great success. On top of that, on the second season of doing this, our transportation department had 12 electric cars brought in. Our lovely drivers had to learn how to drive them quick, and then we were charging them with our circus generator most of the time, and after I had to explain math and a few other things to our Teamster brothers and sisters about generators generate a minimum amount of energy all the time, and our circuses, as much as we think they need it all, they don't. And there's always a surplus of at least 100 amps an hour or more. So I converted all that into capturing all that and putting it back into all the production vehicles that I could all day long. We had producers running their cars being charged all day at our circuses, never ever charging them anywhere else, so they had no other costs. They always kept their vehicles charged through us, and we were pretty fortunate to do that. We also ran with smaller batteries, some 10Ks and 20Ks, so where work trucks were in different blocks, I would use a smaller one, because you're only running lights and computers and the odd heater for somebody, so you could get away with that. There again, at the end of the day, battery makes no sound. Lights can stay on. Trucks can be loaded after hours, and we're not impacting the neighborhood as much. It's funny when you keep your neighborhood quiet with a battery, voices and equipment loading and all that are actually quieter because there's not a steady hum of noise in the background. So through all of this, I've been able to reduce our carbon footprint all the way through, and with a lot of support from a lot of other departments, getting it all done. And there was a manifest. Every time I did a episode, I wrote out a 6 to 8 page manifest of all the movement orders, what we were doing, where all the power was coming from. Our locations department was supporting me, transportation was supporting me, and also the lighting department was supporting me to make sure that all of this came together so that we could encourage everybody to go as green as possible.
They had a diesel-free set from July till end of October when it got cold.
Yeah.
There were no diesel generators around the filming set.
And is there any sort of like obstacles? I mean, it sounds like you guys had a pretty good run, but what are the kind of obstacles that other productions might face? Like, do we have enough batteries? Are there enough? I mean, I think we're all working hard to get more tie-ins, but what's the limitations at the moment?
Vancouver is Vancouver and Greater Vancouver. I guess it's mostly Burnaby and now and Salmon Arm. We're the largest manufacturer of batteries for film sets in the world. In fact, the Clean Gen from RIC has now just hit Los Angeles, and it's the first large battery to come into the States. So we're so far ahead. That was part of the Metro Vancouver report. We're also ahead in the mindset through Creative BC, through Real Green, through mapping, through the work that you did at the Vancouver Art Gallery and with all your locations. A lot of crew are now asking first, hey, is there a tie-in? We also have crews leaving tie-ins for others. You know, like once they figure out how to electrify a building and get all the sources there, they're saying, okay, we're going to get this certified, and now it's here for the next person. So, but to answer your question, I think there might be 12 large batteries in Vancouver.
Right.
You know, like it's, and when we get back to work, which hopefully is very soon, we're going to have, 100 productions start up right at once. So the big message is really back to the City of Vancouver stats, where 33% of production's tied in. You know, like we can tie in, we have a clean grid. If you can get a tie-in, it's way more economical than a battery. And it's also something we're really used to doing. We tie in all the time.
Yeah, I mean, from my experience, it should be one of the first questions asked when sourcing a location. The scout can be prepared to ask that question. Is there power? Can we have an electrician come in, have a look at this? Because, you know, having a tie-in or a temporary tie-in put in saves all the logistics of bringing the batteries. Batteries can be used for more sort of appropriate positions, you know. So I suggest that to anybody out there that is sourcing locations. Should be one of the first questions asked. What do we want to go into? Does anybody else want to discuss?
I have a slide about that.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, where is that slide?
I think it's on this computer. Yeah. Awesome. So we put a little bit of thought into considerations when you are going into a new location. What do you need to think about in terms of your power planning? And I put together this just like 4 basic things. And just, you know, just as we just mentioned, is there a grid tie-in? That should be your first question about your location. And that's, you want to be in connection with your electrical department to figure out, you know, what their resources are and what the amperage is and if it's going to work for you. Consumption, again, that's, I think, a lot about consumption. When you're using, for example, your 18,000 watt lights in your truck and like that's your plan, you're limiting your options. You make it more difficult to transition off of diesel power than if you were using a low consumption fixture like an LED. Maybe it's a whole different look. Maybe it's a whole different lighting kind of plan than your DOP had in mind, but you really need to advocate for those low consumption fixtures to maximize the possible options that you have as an alternative to diesel. The third thing up there is you actually can figure out, and this is pretty much all that I do, exactly how much power you're going to need in the day if you don't have a tie-in and you want to use batteries instead. You can figure out in advance, as long as you can predict the sort of like length of your day. If you're going to let it drag on to 20 hours, you can't actually do this math. But there is another slide that's just like a tiny glimpse of what the math is. But you could, if you're, yeah. Well, go back to the previous one. Sorry, I only made 3 slides. I was going to call them up individually. Now you get the sneak preview of the whole thing. So out of the considerations slide, that was the first one that we were looking at there. Okay, so then distribution is the last thing you want to consider. So maybe you can tie in over here, but you have this other part of your work site over there that you just can't get there. It's over a road or something. That's where you might put a battery as an alternative to that. And again, your electrical department can help you to assess what kind of needs you have over there. But if you have a whole bunch of distributed power supplies around your set, you're again maximizing your opportunities, and it's not what we're used to. We're used to one great big power supply that handles everything. But what we can have is a bunch of little ones that handle like 1 or 2 things and calculate in advance whether that's going to be enough.
And if you run into a situation where you do need a big power supply, bring it in. You know, like what I think the business as usual is, especially here where we have basically one size of generator, which is extra large, is the reason that the equipment companies did that is because everybody kept asking for, well, I might need it. Let's overcompensate. Let's cover our butts. Let's, which I get. We do that all the time. But going back to the concept of scarcity versus abundance, it's like, if you need it, it's available. Just bring it in. Very few of us work on shows where you can carry 3 techno cranes just in case. This is what these large machines need to be considered as, is they are required when they are required. And they're an amazing tool. They will run forever as long as you keep feeding them. But you don't need that most of the time. I think it was 85% less than idle was what the valid slide. Oh, were you here this morning? There was a valid slide. 85%. They're running less than idle. So 1% they hit their load. Bring them in.
Yeah, and remember to factor in the fuel also that you're saving. Maybe you're renting it, maybe it's parked, but you're saving a couple $1,000s a week in diesel costs if you're not running the generator. So I don't know. That's Clara's area. I'm a baby producer. I've done like 2 shows.
Well, now you can use the tool.
Yes, exactly. I can use the tool.
Do you find that you're spending a lot of time with the planning and that you need more help, or is it, is it a one-person kind of operation to run the sustainability?
I'm in dock, so it's one person.
It's a lot more planning. As a rigging gaffer, I would literally grind out hours and hours to get that manifest put together. And it had got better second season because locations, and I started working ahead of the curve, trying to get to locations so I could offer tie-ins. Scout was signing the tentative deal. I was running into a lot of these places to try to find out what power was available. Even in neighborhoods, everybody thinks you need 200, 300, 400 amps. We don't. Quite often we need 100 amps or less, especially for work trucks. And like in any city, you have to park block after block after block, and we can't cross streets with cable mats and blah, blah, blah. So little power drops from little places are perfect. Dryer plugs, stove plugs, those sort of adapters will work great, and they'll keep a lot of trucks running. And we don't have to have a generator. Yes, you're going to give a client or some location a little bit of money. They're going to love us as well because they got a few bucks out of us and they think they've done well. We've got a little bit of power and we've saved a generator. I've worked downtown where I've had to have 8 generators because I have 8 blocks of trucks because I can't cross streets. It's ridiculous. They're all the same size. They're all burning the same amount of fuel. I want to find an adapter for all these car chargers. I want to come off of those and put it in and give us power that way. That's what I'm working on next. But there has to be a way to get power out of these buildings. And all these industrial areas we go to, they all say, oh, well, they don't have very much power. We don't need a lot of power every time. Maybe for the set part of it, bring the electric battery in. All the residual stuff, we can run that off of most people's house powers. Even 120, 240 at a house will run a lot of trucks.
And that was what was behind the mapping system. So when Real Green and the Clean Energy Committee started meeting, and Jeff and I are on that committee, and actually and Kerri, we're all on the committee. But when it first started, one of the questions came out was, where do we find the tie-ins? And so we created a mapping system. Jennifer McNeil actually created the mapping system for us, or organized it, so that I can show you a map that says there's 150 tie-ins. And by working with the 891 crews, they are self-reporting these tie-ins. And I get random calls a lot going, oh my God, there's 8 power drops at Cloverdale. Did you know? And I'm like, no, great. Did you map it? But, that's another tool where if you're standing out, as long as you have a cell signal, you can find a power drop or you can find a tie-in. And now the city has invested in the power drops, the kiosks. There's 3 right now that are live. The goal is to have 25 by 2030, which is how they're going to get to you can't bring a generator. Because with the maps, we know that those 25 kiosks are going to cover 95% of where generators are parked right now.
Can you remind me where the 3 current ones are?
Yes, there's one under the viaduct,
Yeah.
right?
I should know this.
You should.
I should know, but I don't.
There's two under the viaduct, and is it the Shaughnessy Circle?
Shaughnessy Circle has the fourth one.
Yeah.
There's 3 under the viaduct.
Okay, 3 under the viaduct, 1 at the Shaughnessy Circle.
Yeah, like where the Concord parking area is, by the casino and all that, and where the circus goes. There's 3 kiosks down there, 400 amps each, and we just did one at the Shaughnessy Circle, which is 1 box of 400 amps. So we can reduce running any noise up there.
And Jeff, I don't know what the process is behind using them. What is the process? Does it contact the city for those clients?
Jeff Tioli's team have access to them, and we have codes, and we just get in there, and there's Maple Ridge is adding 2 to their usual parking area that they have out there, and Surrey's looking at some, and Richmond's Stevenson's putting in 1 as well.
That's great.
Yeah.
And, Jeff is one of the people who helped design it. So these were, the city was amazing in working with us, the industry, to figure out exactly what we needed. Those plans are open source. They're on the city website. They have been duplicated in Toronto and in London, England. And New York City is looking at them, and so is LA. So, when you heard from a bunch of people that we are a leader, we really are a leader in what's happening. And it's just so inspiring. It's so great.
Also, I'm sure most of you know, but like at the Vancouver Art Gallery is a generator-free zone now, completely. They have power drops front, back, and sides, so we can power anything. And they have close to 1,200 amps available. So we don't even need it for the big stuff. We can run big lights all day there. They've just finished putting
Unless there's a Christmas tree.
Exactly. It's one of I think it was the first generator-free zone that we created, because there's absolutely no excuse to have a generator there now, except for when there's a Christmas tree which uses half of the power, and then we have. But that's the only time. Yeah, it's one of the.
I remember you gave me some stats right after. So, ironically, these tie-ins existed for a long time. They were put in for the Jazz Festival, but we never used them because the urban myth was that they were unreliable, or there was no access, or there was no key. And when the city of Vancouver passed the motion to help the film industry get off generators in 2019, we went down and had a field trip, and we were all there. And from that, like the 100 days of filming, you told me the 100 days of filming before that, 3 days tie-ins were used. And the 100 days of filming after that, there were 3 days where tie-ins were not used.
Yep, that's right.
Instantly.
We enforced it. And it took a bit of pressure to say, look, this is it, and the notification ahead of schedule. Like, you don't want a production to turn up with the generators. That's just, so it took a little while just to get the system in place. But now everybody's kind of aware of it, and they appreciate it. And we have enough tie-ins there to facilitate a big night shoot. So a night shoot can happen there. I think you agree?
Yep.
Yeah.
There's, like I said, I think it's over 1,200 amps. With the new one they put in on the south side, I think it's over 1,200 amps on the ground there now.
Yeah.
It's a lot. There's more than enough power for anything we want to do there.
Yeah. And we've taken it to other locations now. So, Dairyland is another one. And we're partnering with companies that have transformers and stuff. This is really expensive stuff. I couldn't afford it myself, but the companies have it. They get a rental. It's marginal. They're not gouging. They're just making enough money to cover their equipment. And, at the same time, we have these productions that are generator free at multiple locations now. Mm-hmm. And if I had it my way, it'd be every location. And that's certainly what I'm pushing for. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I think, the tool is also for the sites. They're for those operators or the people who are running the locations. It's for the guy with the parking lot to figure out how many days of generator free is he, so he can make the case to the productions, and say, okay, I'm going to charge you an extra $400 because I have to pay for this power drop.
Yeah, exactly.
I was also going to say that when you were asking about barriers, the biggest barrier is that we don't like changing the way we do things. Mm. And we don't we also have a very real stress level that's happening around us, and every department feels it, of constant indecision, constant change of schedule, constant money crunch, constant everything else, and it's a lot easier to do what we know how to do. But given the opportunity, and I've seen this on a bunch of shows, if crews start trying and playing with the batteries, or they're challenged to tie in, they'll do it. And then they'll get rid of the generator because it's a pain, right? Like, it's easier not to run cable. It's easier to have power right here where you need it.
I do have a slide on batteries and generators and how they're different.
Yeah, can we look at that slide?
Bring that second slide up.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Just advance this one. How does it go?
Yeah.
Oh, it's there. Oh my God, it's like magic. It's magic around here. So this is just, so for crews that are going to make the switch to battery, it's important to understand just a few key differences, right? We're not going to get into a lot of technical detail, but they're different energy systems. Fuel, you burn it in a generator, it creates electricity on the spot. You just keep pouring in fuel, it keeps creating electricity. Whereas a battery has a limit to how much energy it can store. And when you've tapped that out, you need to recharge it. You all know that from your phones. So that's the difference. So your battery needs a secondary power supply to charge it up on. You know, they're similar in that they both, you know, your generator needs to be refueled, your battery needs to be recharged. But the biggest difference that might be hard for your electrical crews to get their heads around is just that they are rated completely differently. So kilowatt hours and amps are completely different things. And what an amp is just a continuous flow of energy. And you need to do a bunch of math to figure out what that translates into in terms of the wattage of the things that you're running. Whereas a battery is calculated in wattage. And that, you know, in a way, the math is almost easier because your wattage is what is in the battery and your appliances are what is going to use it. And you just can kind of like sort of math all that out. So like this is the math of that, right? So 1 kilowatt hour, batteries are rated in kilowatt hours, is 1,000 watts for 1 hour. Everybody can understand that. It's one of those lights that burns 1,000 watts. You can burn it for an hour, and you've used up 1 kilowatt hour. So if you've got a 10 kilowatt hour battery, you can maybe, you're going to run out before the end of your 12-hour day, perhaps. Or maybe you break for lunch and you run that one light off of your 10 kilowatt hour battery. It's pretty simple math, but it can get complicated when you're looking at an entire film set where you've got a whole lighting plan and they got all these trucks and they've got stuff going on there. And on top of that, the stuff isn't going all day long. You know, your toaster might be going for maybe like 20 minutes over the course of a whole day, but you still need to account for that in your energy. And you might not be burning everything at 100%. Like your heaters might be halfway up. They might just be going for half of the day. So if you want to, if you want to forecast in advance exactly how big of a battery you're going to need, you got to account for a lot of little things. But in all of the analysis that I've done so far that tries to do that, you are kind of looking at a minimum of 125 kilowatt hours for something pretty basic, something sort of mid-budget. Would you agree? Like, that's like, they're bigger than you think. Like a 5K is not necessarily going to, you can't one for one replace your diesel generator with one battery and expect it to do all of the same things. That's sort of what I'm trying to say.
Thank goodness for rigging gaffers.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he'll do all that math for you.
So I don't like to use the phrase more is better just in case, because that's how the whole industry is run up to this point. But would that be helpful? Do we need, hundreds of these batteries?
It depends. Yeah. I mean, manufactured in the marketplace, absolutely. Yeah. But what you do need is, for example, with the small ones, you carry 3, right? Like there's one being used, there's one.
Yeah, the smaller 5Ks, 10Ks, you have multiples. You try to carry 3 minimum because you have one working, one standing by, one being charged, and they're constantly cycling through. With the larger ones, I was fortunate enough at one point I had 3, but most of the time I was carrying 2 225 kV things, which those 2 could run an entire film set on Virgin River for a day. 18 Ks burning the whole bit. Flip them through on the same set, change them at lunch. So you drain one up until lunch and then you finish off with the other part. Something to remember though, like on most of this equipment, I'm sure if you were here this morning, it tells you and when it's getting low, and it actually, you can set it up on the big ones, it sets out a signal to our generator operator or our power management person that they're getting low. So he has to make a decision. How much time is left in the day that he's going to need that energy? He's down at 20%. Is he going to make it? He's got to figure it out, and he's got to make sure the gaffer and the director of photography and everybody is aware he's getting down to the threshold. So he has to make a decision either to bring another plant in or bring a diesel plant in and start running that because they're going to go longer in their day. But it's very forecastable. As the day goes on, you can see where your power has gone down and how much power you got left in those machines. They're very accurate. Trust me, I've seen them go out on the set. It works. When it says 5%, it's out. Everything went dark, everybody stopped. It was really good for a minute. Until they realized that I was still at work at that moment, and they all looked at me and went, "What are you doing to us?" So we fixed that real quick. We had two, just so everybody knows, this is not a perfect science. On Virgin River, we had 2 complete failures where the battery completely died in the middle of a shooting point, and there was no ramifications. We got a machine in there. We got them back up and running within 15 minutes, and we did a complete review the next day. With nobody pointing fingers, but it was like, what happened? And we realized what happened was there was an error. They picked up the wrong unit. It wasn't fully charged. So that was a human error on a couple of different levels. And everybody was reminded that we have to make sure we catch the right unit. Transportation has to make sure they're picking up the right unit. We have to make sure we disconnect the right unit so it goes out to get put back on set. But other than that, we were very successful for the last season.
And I think that Jeff just glossed over that, but 2 basically down Jennies or down batteries over the course of the season. Like, Jennies go down all the time. How many times do you hear over the walkie, repatching, something's wrong, But so that's miraculous. But secondly, the production totally supported this. We went in this top down. Everybody on the show was aware of what Virgin River was trying to do. They were proud of what Virgin River was trying to do, and they were tolerant when it went down. Nobody got, it wasn't a big deal. It was, and I had the same experience when I produced The Magicians, where we electrified the studios and got rid of 4 generators. And other than when, I don't know if it was a thunderstorm or an accident, but the grid went out. So I got a phone call going, well, now what do we do? And I'm like, okay, once in 2 years, bring the generator from the parking lot and plug it in and keep shooting. The generators are still in our world. They're not going away. But we can minimize how we use them, and we can use them more efficiently, and we can use them less. And then when we do use them, we can put in renewable diesel, which is a whole other conversation, which will reduce the footprint by 80%.
Yeah, and I think we're going to go to Q&A now. I know we could probably all talk about this for hours, but does anyone have any questions that you'd like from the panelists up there? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Clara.
Hey, Robin.
So this thing's been amazing, and there's been so many incredible speakers, and obviously fuel is a massive, This is working. Oh, there we are. The city has this grid now, and of course some other shows, like the smaller shows that I've worked on, we've shot out in the valley. Is there anything that the cities and the municipalities are doing in terms of sort of mandating from productions that they're asked? Like, I know studios like Netflix will say, we want you to have this calculator and show us what your carbon footprint is. But is there anything that the municipalities can be doing as well and questioning the shows? Because once that happens, it's a regulation and you just have to make that change. So is there a little bit more pressure that can be put on the City of Vancouver and the municipalities to be questioning our shows too as to what our power is, that you're only allowed to have this much power out there? Because then it won't be a question of whether we're doing it or not as well.
Julie, do you want to take that one?
I know that was a big discussion piece in the industry and community affairs meetings. And I know that because Zena was living originally in Squamish, she got that city perfectly lined with all of the right verbiage on the website that they had about filming in the community. So we would love to see as many of the municipalities to step up and, put it on their website that this is what we expect from you if you're going to film in our communities. Yeah.
I think that, I've been in those meetings in the community affairs meetings and they're housed at Creative BC and they're amazing. And I watched the conversation change from, we had so many complaints about the generator to like, oh my God, this production used an electric plant or this production tied in, and can they come back or can they tell people? I do think though, with everything else, like because you are a regular in those areas, it's really important that you tell the film liaison, we will show up if you start asking these questions. We're not gonna, like everybody's, that side of it, it's funny because like having kind of sat on both sides now a little bit, as a producer, we're like, please let us film here. And as a municipality, they're like, please come and film here. And it's like they don't understand that we want those regulations. I've heard so many times from organizations, vendors, independent producers, people just go, well, yeah, you got to make me. And they're not saying it like a 4-year-old, like make me. They're like, please start helping us. We need to take that to our people to make sure that we can build the business case and say the industry will accept what we're doing. That was what was so great about the City of Vancouver step, is that, Jeff Tioli coming from locations, coming from WorkSafe, being able to reach out to a bunch of the people in this room and say, hey, what do you think if we do this? And we all said, yeah, go for it. And he was able to do that. So like, we're the industry that's supporting, like we're the production managers, the producers, the filmmakers, the crew that are supporting the industry that is, we're working together. And if they think we don't want it, they're not going to do it. And if we think they don't want it, we're not going to do it. So it's kind of like we need to start talking and work together, which we're doing with this panel. Yeah, and if they knew, like if you went into them and they said, oh, well, Robin's going to bring clean generators, they want to see that, But I think that we're waiting for those regulations and we just have to start showing them it's okay. And then once they know it's okay, they can meet us halfway.
I was just curious if these are all lithium-ion batteries or are they some sodium nickel as well? There's a combination of both available here?
I can talk about that. Right now, the Salty Dog out there, I believe, is the only sodium nickel equipment on the market, and we don't have a supply of those here yet that I'm aware of. So everything that we're working with now, still lithium ion, which does have greater environmental impacts with the manufacture and the creation of it. But ultimately, a battery is a battery, and if you're using battery power and not burning diesel on set, you're in a better position. And there's no reason you can't be using both, whatever you can get your hands on. If you can get a battery, it's better than burning diesel, right? And the other thing to consider with sodium nickel and lithium, and the difference between the two is just there's an energy density differential. So you have slightly bigger batteries to supply an equivalent amount of power with the sodium alternative, but for sure, I love that machine out there, and I can't wait to see more of those on set.
Anybody else? Maybe we could do one more, folks? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, there's two.
Let's do this.
Just curious to find out, how do you charge the batteries?
Plug them in? No. There's if Virgin River was out in Squamish, I would take it and I'd plug it in with the circuit generator and absorb all that extra energy that wasn't being used. And we actually did a case study where we could prove that we tracked all the fuel for 3.5 weeks, and we didn't use any extra. And we were charging cars and batteries along the way, and the fuel costs stayed the same on that particular one generator that was on running the circuits every day for 14 hours. So we were absorbing energy that way, offsetting our carbon footprint that way. And we also, we can use the kiosks in Vancouver. And the batteries we also have, you can take them to any car charger and plug them into 2 car chargers, and it'll charge it up in about 6 hours. So that was the other thing. I would have a Teamster go off to the nearest charging point, and we would drop it there and plug it in for 6 hours and charge it. There's a lot of chargers in Squamish, so we could use those all the time.
And because they were a studio show, so when they were, close to home base, they did charge at the studio as well. And I did want to talk about, just for 1 second, about hybridizing. So it's not it's not, as Kerri said, it's not an either or, right? So if you can run that battery for 4 hours, and then you need to turn on the generator for 6 hours, you just saved 40% of your fuel, right? And even if you are charging with diesel, because again, we're not using the diesel generators properly, meaning that we're not capturing everything they're producing. So we're really storing that excess energy, whether it's an electric car or an electric battery. So it looks weird when you've got a Tesla hooked up to a diesel generator, but it's actually a really good thing.
One more question here, if that's okay.
Thank you. Going back to the PR and reaching out to locations, there is one particular one that comes to mind that have all the power, have all the transformers, and they refuse me twice for the productions to be able to use their power. They don't want the film electricians to touch their boxes, and they don't think that their electricians should be working on providing the film production with electricity. How do we bridge that gap? How do we reach out to them and say, this is good for you and for us?
You call Creative BC, and you let them know, and they will use everything they can to make it better.
The other thing is go to the owner or the owner's representatives and say, who's your preferred electrician? Let's get them in. If they're worried about the film electricians, which they shouldn't be, but if they are, and that's the concern, let them get their electricians in, have a meeting, a discussion, talk about it. There's nothing better than having an on-site meeting in these scenarios where you're face-to-face, you're talking about, the concerns that you got, and everybody's trying to create a better environment, So I think that's the key.
And then now you can use the calculator to show them how much carbon they're going to save and they can advertise that they're a clean location.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Is that us? All right.
I know we could keep going on this, but we are reaching the end of our day. So I want to say thank you very much to Clara, Jeff, Cy, and Kerri. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your knowledge with us. And if you'll bear with me for just one moment, I will just kind of set us up for our last moment here. So firstly, I would like to thank all of our attendees, guest speakers, moderators, and partners for making this event possible. By the way, we're not done at SPF 23. We have an online event, October 26th. That's next week. It is available virtually from the comfort of your home, although it's been a pleasure to see you all here today. So please check that out, and everybody who is here will get a ticket. So please join us. And our focus for that programming is really on the international scene. So I think you will take a peek and you will see there's a lot of really cool stuff that we haven't had a chance to discuss here today. So stay tuned for that. And before we head into our networking reception, which will be in the lovely atrium outside, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our partners. Foundational partner Green Spark Group, presenting partner SPF Vancouver Real Green at Creative BC, signature partners CBC Radio Canada, Telefilm Canada, program partners IATSE Local 891, DGC National, Independent Production Fund, Canadian Media Producers Association, William F. White International Sunbelt, Ontario Green Screen, Canada Media Fund, Calgary Economic Development, Trilight Entertainment, Vancouver Film Studios, Bridge Studios, Keep It Green Recycling, Canadian Film Centre, yes, we'll clap for all of them after, Whiffed Tea, Producers Guild of America, Marmoset Music, Bullfrog Power, Vancouver Latin American Film Festival, BC Environmental Film Festival, Academy of Canadian Cinema and Television, and all of our vendors and hospitality partners, the Earth Group, Valid Manufacturing, Whiskey Jack, Green Production Guide, Anton Bauer, Driving Force, Scriptation, Keslow Cameras, Bon Macaron Pâtisserie, there'll be some out in the hall, Reusables, Flavors of Hope, and lastly, thank you to all the dreamers, creators, and innovators who are relentlessly working on reimagining a better world for everyone. Thank you very much, Vancouver. Thank you for today.